Well, yes, indeed. Some others, as well as Chocolate Doherty, have been making these points for some time. In fairness, I think Deputy Cullinan. But I am satisfied with the Minister's answer on this one. But I'm glad, to be honest, that we have had the debate, because it's something that I've raised at the Budget Scrutiny Committee over the last number of years and on the Finance Committee. We never discuss, in the way we discuss expenditure, tax reliefs. And we should, because they are expenditures of public money in exactly the same way as the budget we discussed today is. Exactly the same. And yet we don't discuss them. It's a shadow budget that the public do not see, and I suspect most deputies are only vaguely aware of. But the scale of it is absolutely enormous. And I mentioned just one of the categories in that shadow budget of tax reliefs is the same size as the additional expenditure in the entire budget we discussed today. The category of intergroup transactions, €16 billion in the last available figures. I mean, that's huge. There's a massive fanfare and debate all over the country today about the fact that there's been a 17 billion additional expenditure. And in just one category of a litany of tax reliefs, 16 billion. All going to about 20 or 30 companies. And that's only one relief. There's the R&D tax credit, which is running at about €700 million a year. And you think, R&D tax credit, good idea, except would that 700 million be better going to Google, Facebook, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, etc., or going into our public universities for research and development? I'd love to see the cost-benefit analysis on the benefit to Irish society and the Irish economy, particularly when you think about the COVID pandemic. And you think about the amount of money, or how little money, goes into Science Foundation Ireland. When you think about how underfunded research is generally, it might be worth noting, actually, because it won't get discussed anywhere else, Count Corla, in terms of the budget discussion, that the amount of money for health research in the health budget this year, static, no change. Interesting, isn't it? And you would have thought in the midst of a pandemic where we're desperate for therapies, for vaccine research, and all the rest of it, you would think there would be a significant additional amount of money put into health research. Not 1 cent extra. But there is hundreds of millions going into the pockets of some of the big private for-profit pharmaceutical companies and IT companies. And there's a whole range of others I won't even get into, but of the €180 billion pre-tax gross profits for all corporations, tax is only actually paid on about 80 billion of that profits. Such are the scale of the reliefs. And that is a scandal that needs to be addressed, it needs to be discussed, and we need to assess the benefit overall, because that's the point that the Taoiseach doesn't really address, is have we really looked at, if we redirected some of these reliefs elsewhere, what would the benefit be? And by the way, I don't think they would run out of this country if they were made pay the 12.5% or even a little bit more, when you consider that they need to be in the European Union. They, for the most part, want to be in English-speaking countries. And there's not many of them left in the European Union after the exit of Britain. So the idea that they're going to go running out of Ireland because they're made pay 12.5% tax and go where? I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a minute. So we don't need to get down on our knees and beg these people. They're making an awful lot of money. I mean, staggering amounts of money. And I think it would be very, at least worthwhile for us to discuss that as part of these budgets, the shadow budget of tax reliefs and allowances, and discuss whether these public monies should actually be expended in boosting public research, public universities, public infrastructure and public services.